I've thought about this too. Like if somebody is it better for somebody to be sentenced, to a very long time in jail, to be incarcerated for a very long time? Is it better for them to be sentenced in their early years, in their middle years, or their later years?
I mean, their later
Because
years would have to be the answer, right? Because I mean, you're going to spend those later years in prison anyway, right?
well,
So
let's say it's a 20-year term either way, right? So 20 years between 20 and 40, between 40 and 60, between 60 and 80,
okay,
probably end of your life. Let's say average lifespan. Like that's like end of your life.
I
I feel
suppose
like it
if
would
it's
be
a 20
best
year
at the
term, and
end.
maybe. I
I
mean, maybe
because
if you get sentenced young enough, there's some ability to rebuild your life and you know
I don't know,
do
because
something.
those are your prime years for creating your life.
This is true.
You know? You have so much, like, financial impact on the rest of your life that you're having to make up for 20
Yeah.
years essentially. Like, it just you're at such a financial disadvantage coming out at 40 or at 60.
Have we ever discussed the death penalty before?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think I have some idiosyncratic views on the death
Okay.
penalty.
I will be honest,
Um,
I don't know exactly how I feel about the death penalty. I haven't spent too much time thinking about it. So I may be working through some thoughts as we go.
okay, I have a particularly very idiosyncratic view
Okay.
on the death penalty about wrongful executions. Okay, I think about the possibility of someone being wrongfully executed,
Mhm.
and so is the possibility of a wrongful execution acceptable? To my mind, I don't think there's much difference between that question and the question of is it is it okay if anyone dies in prison from a life sentence? So, on the one hand, we're convicting someone of death. They're going to be executed. They're wrongfully convicted. A wrongfully innocent person has been executed. Okay. Is that any different than a wrongfully convicted person dying in prison from natural causes during a life sentence? To my mind, I
Mm.
don't really see the difference. Either way, you're dying in prison. Either way, you're wrongfully convicted. Either way, you're serving years. That I suppose the only benefit to life imprisonment, depending on your age, is
Hmm.
you might have more life. But like, what's the quality of that life in some way? It's like, is that a life worth living if you're going to be in prison forever? So it's like, I let me put it to you this way: if I knew I was going to be convicted and I knew I was innocent, also people who get sentenced to death get more attention to their case. So there's a greater possibility of that error being corrected. So if I knew I was innocent and I knew my options were life imprisonment versus the death penalty, I'm not sure that I don't pick the death penalty because
Hmm.
I get more review of my case. If it goes poorly, I die, but I was going to die in prison anyway. So I don't really quite buy
Hmm.
that any innocent execution is worse. And people say, well, in the case of a life sentence, there's more opportunity to review that case. But it's like, is there? Because
Yeah.
death penalty cases get so much more attention, and it's I'm just not wholly convinced that on that argument. So if you want to say I'm an
Interesting.
immoral bastard, then
No.
now it's fine.
No, 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 not at all. We're working through these questions. They're very interesting. I think it part of it depends on how you view the manner of death, in in an execution versus somebody being able to die of natural causes. Like, how much do you value that? um and then also the other part of it would be how much you value the time that you would be able to spend in prison. Prison is a weird place, I will say. I have gone to depositions at prison, and it's like every time I felt like I needed to just like burn everything I touched because it was just a
Yep.
weird place.
Yep.
Like it made my skin crawl a little bit.
What is the
But
value of a life in prison forever?
I don't know. But I've also heard some good TED Talks from
Yeah.
from some ex-convicts, talking about the lessons that they've learned from being incarcerated and, how they've changed their life around. But I mean, obviously this is coming from the perspective of somebody who was able to come out afterwards, which is
Yeah,
different than somebody who
there's
is
a survivor
ultimately going
bias
to
problem there,
die.
right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that is necessarily something you would bank on. I acknowledge that there are cases of people coming out of prison and living great lives and successful lives, but there's a survivorship bias problem. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, those people made it, but how many people didn't, and how many people are just ruined? Lots more. So let's play the numbers and play it
Mhm.
out.
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean, like we already talked about the financial situation that people, come out with, and the major disadvantages they end up having. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer for what I would prefer given the option. I think that
Yeah,
I guess my my survival instinct says I would just want more time. But that's me at this point in my life. I don't know if
I
I
also
was a
think
lot
that
older and I
life.
was like,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to
you know,
interrupt.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, like, maybe at a different point in my life, I would feel like, okay, but like, what kind of a life am I going to be living in this, in this hellhole? I might as well cut things short.
Yeah, like why suffer? I suppose on some level, because
Yeah.
prison is suffering. I also think there's a bit of a moral cowardice element to life imprisonment without parole, because we've basically acknowledged this person deserves to die because we're locking them up forever, but we're too cowardly to actually do it ourselves. We're just waiting for the
Mm.
Grim Reaper to do our dirty work for us
Mm.
because we're too cowardly to actually go through our convictions. So we like to distance ourselves from our. It's like, well, this guy died of natural causes. Like, yeah, you're distancing yourself from the morality of that decision. Like you locked him in a cage until the inevitable end occurred. I think you're kind of just as responsible for that inevitable end as in the death penalty case. At least in the death penalty
Mm.
case, you had the courage to actually pull the trigger, as it were, and you had the conviction. You showed the conviction of your beliefs. So I have some idiosyncratic views. Yeah,
Interesting. I mean, well, that's courage and conviction from one perspective, but maybe from another perspective, it's callousness and cold-heartedness, and
yeah,
to the humanity, that each individual has, and to allow them to live a life, even if it's not a full life, because it's not fully free, obviously, and not by any stretch of the imagination, because they are incarcerated. But hmm. I don't know. That's a very interesting topic.
yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm going to think about this a little bit longer. But which is better for us to stand by as a society if they ultimately are going to have a similar result. If not exactly
Yeah,
the same, a very similar result, functionally speaking.
there's something slightly odd about
Yeah.
the just to my mind, slightly odd about the argument that any wrongful execution is unacceptable. We should get rid of the death penalty because any wrongful execution is unacceptable. But apparently, any wrongful death in prison as a result of a sentence of life is acceptable, and I don't quite understand why. So
Hmm.
yeah. If you can figure it out, let me know.
I'm gonna be thinking about this one. It's a very, very interesting. I love these more like philosophical conceptual discussions. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.